Glad to be with you. Glad to have you with us. We've got ourselves a 5-game Tuesday slate. Adam, 3 slates, including this one. 3 slates to go before the All-Star break. Thursday, only 3 games. And then we got a little bit of a respite here, a little bit of a break. Not going to lie, I enjoy the All-Star break because it gives you time to re-energize a bit and, maybe fine-tune some things you're looking to do. But, so we've got 5 games today, 11 games tomorrow, 3 games Thursday, and then we're into the break.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have some basketball stuff that I want to kind of improve on, and I haven't really gotten around to completely fixing, like you said. Pretty excited to get started on some baseball work as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into baseball yet, but generally, like you said, All-Star break is usually when I start my baseball research. It takes some time. There's a lot of moves, a lot of things change. But there's only so much you can glean from it until you get some straight spring training, see if pitchers and hitters have changed things, whether it be adding or removing a pitch, changing their stance, getting rid of a hole in their swing. All that stuff's pretty exciting. So when does spring training start?
Pitchers and catchers reported, I believe, today.
Was it today?
Yeah, I think it's either today or tomorrow, but I think it's today. I've seen enough tweets from like baseball accounts of guys in Florida.
Yeah. So the first spring training game is on the 21st of February. The 21st. Cool. So 9 days from now. Looking forward to it. It's a long season, though. It's a really long season.
That it is.
But we still got some basketball to talk about. So let's dive right into it. Lakers on the road against the Atlanta Hawks. This game should come as a surprise to nobody. Josh and I discussed it at length on the strategy show. 238.5 total. It continues to go up. That's a huge total. Lakers 6-point favorites on the road. Adam, you had asked me prior to getting started. We'll start here with the Lakers. What I thought the starting lineup would be for the Lakers, and this is a conversation we had this morning on the strategy show as well. Which, if you haven't or don't watch it, you can check out the strategy show Monday through Friday on right here on the Awesemo channel on YouTube. And of course, it's a long, comprehensive look into all of the day's games. And then you and EMAC do one on Saturday. What do you call that show?
The strategy show.
It is the strategy show. Okay. Yeah. Because it's pretty much a combination of both, like the deep dive and the strategy.
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, what I had said is I wouldn't be surprised if Rajon Rondo is back in the starting lineup today, only because you're talking about a team that they faced last game where your starting lineup is Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Some good shooting now, some really good scores. They ended up blowing them out, but more so defensively, they create an incredible amount of mismatches. So is it possible that Walton keeps the same starting lineup with Ingram at the 1 and Bullock at the 2? It is, but I wouldn't be surprised if he reverts back. The biggest thing, Adam, is until we know, it's tough to move forward with a lot of players here because it has a huge impact on a lot of their value going into tonight.
Yeah, and not even just the value. I mean, obviously it has a big impact on Rondo, but even LeBron James has averaged over 1.6 fantasy points per minute without Rondo or Kuzma on the floor, Rondo or Ball on the floor this year. He's averaged like 1.35 alongside Rondo. So it even has a big impact for him. And I'm with you. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that was just a 1-game thing. But on the other hand, I think that it would make sense for it to be a longer-term solution because this Lakers team has needed shooting all season long, and putting Bullock into the starting lineup helps you with that. Bringing him off the bench is just kind of weird because they already have KCP there.
Right.
It's just kind of weird.
LeBron's a perfectly fine facilitator. Right. Like, it's not like you don't have a capable ball hand. You wouldn't want Ingram as your primary point guard, but you have LeBron.
Right. And so the hardest part for me is I really find it difficult to think that Rajon Rondo plays 16 minutes a game going forward. Even if he comes off the bench, I think he's getting more minutes normally. So like Chandler and Muscala missed shoot around today. If I assume that they're out, I'm able to project 24 minutes for Rondo, even coming off the bench. So that at least makes me feel a little bit better about it. So I'm guessing I'm really 50-50 on it, but until we get news, I'm just assuming that Bullock stays in the starting lineup. But it wouldn't be surprising at all to me if that changes.
I don't know either. But fortunately, there's one 7:30 game, there's 3 8 o'clock games, and there's a 10:30 game. They're spaced out. This is the early game, so we have that. Hopefully, we'll get a starting lineup relatively soon, or at least with enough time to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Otherwise, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they announced that Rondo was going to the bench 5 minutes after tip, so hopefully we get it before lock.
Right. You would certainly hope so. You would really hope so. But like you said, there's no guarantees at all. Have a contingency plan in place. If we find out 5 minutes before lock, know what you're going to do if it's not what you're expecting. Because while you and I can both say, hey, are the Sixers a team that coaches would change a starting lineup against? Both of us would answer, yeah, we could see why that would happen. But as you said, do they need shooting in their starting lineup? They do. And Bullock off the bench does not make a lot of sense when you've already got somebody very similar, a 3-and-D player like KCP. We'll see. But let's go ahead and do it this way. We'll give you the best of both worlds here. Let's assume the starting lineup stays the way it is. We've got Reggie Bullock on DraftKings at $3,400. On FanDuel, he's 46, but $400 above the minimum on DraftKings. As you already mentioned, LeBron James with Rondo off. We don't even need to get into that. And it's pretty obvious why. Rondo has no point of being on the floor unless the ball is in his hands enough. Otherwise, why is he out there? So LeBron James sees a significant boost. Even if it's LeBron, things are still going to affect him. And then Brandon Ingram would go from starting it at the point to not starting at the point. So let's go ahead stay at the point. I want to stay on track here. Let's go ahead and say that Bullock remains in the starting lineup, and Rondo remains off the bench.
Right. So if Bullock stays in the starting lineup, it gives you a value play that probably has pretty significant ownership and isn't super appealing just because it's still Reggie Bullock and he's still going to be the 4th or 5th offensive option out here. But he should get more open looks than he was getting on the Pistons. And we know that LeBron can really get the most out of guys like that. Channing
Frye.
Yeah. Channing Frye being the guy that comes to mind, that was
78% of his assisted field goals 2 years ago came assisted from LeBron.
Right. So, I mean, we've seen him get the most out of guys like that. And if you're going to get around 30 minutes from Reggie Bullock at 3,400 on a 5-game slate with limited value and in a game that's just so appealing from, a number of possession standpoint, I think that Bullock is pretty clearly a good value play. If you're looking to differentiate in tournaments, you do have KCP at a similar price tag, probably only playing a couple less minutes off the bench. So you can certainly get him for lower ownership. And, I think either of them would be fine.
Yeah, not only is Reggie Bullock dirt cheap, but he's facing the Hawks, a Hawks team that has done a terrible job of containing 3-point shooting. No surprise there. They're bad on all fronts. Another thing too, nobody turns the ball over, allows more steals as much as the Hawks. So there are ways that Reggie Bullock can boost up those numbers from beyond the arc. Hopefully some defensive stats as well. He doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be okay. He needs to be better than he was against the Sixers, though. My God, 2 points and 3 assists in 31 minutes, 1 rebound. Whew, that's rough.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
What about Brandon Ingram, though? Because, like I said, Brandon Ingram starting at the point opposed to not starting at the point and then adding Rondo on there. So really, your opportunities as a distributor go down, even though his assist numbers look okay recently. There's no question that his touch count would go down if Rondo is on the floor compared to Reggie Bullock. It makes a huge difference for some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it impacting Ingram that much. I think as long as LeBron's out there, LeBron's playing point, and it doesn't really matter if it's Rondo or LeBron. The big thing for Ingram is that when he plays alongside LeBron, you see a massive decrease in productivity. Even if you look at the numbers with LeBron on and Rondo and Ball off, it's a limited sample, but you just see like a 16.5% usage rate for Ingram. He really takes a hit whenever he plays with LeBron. So $5,500 for him against the Hawks is certainly reasonable, but I would still have him behind every other starter in terms of, point per dollar value, regardless of if Rondo starts or not.
Agreed. Now let's say Rondo doesn't start. or I'm sorry, does start. Let's say Rondo does start. He's back in the starting lineup. And now you've got a different starting five than we did on the 10th when they faced Philadelphia. The last game prior to that was the 7th against the Boston Celtics. So given what we know, if Rondo starts, I mean, if he starts, I'm going to put him back at 30 plus minutes. I don't know how I couldn't.
Right, I agree. If Rondo starts, he becomes probably the best point guard on the slate. Like it's either him or Trae Young.
Yep. Yeah, that was the discussion we had today. Was because I think I threw Josh off a bit when I was like, I like Rondo at 5,900 too. Prefaced with if he starts, and if he does, $5,900. Hell, 29 minutes for Rondo in this spot would probably be enough. The opportunities are unlimited. A pace up spot, you could rattle off every area where the Hawks are bad defensively or good for opposing fantasy points. There isn't a bad spot for opposing guards if you're Rajon Rondo. There just isn't.
Right.
So anything else change in that respect? If Rondo starts, anything else you want to talk about? Would you have less exposure to LeBron?
I think I'd have less exposure to LeBron. I'd still like him. I'd still think he's a really good play because of the spot, obviously. But I mean, he loses like 0.3 fantasy points per minute, and so it would make him. Someone asked in chat about Anthony Davis earlier in tournaments, and part of my answer was that it depends on the Lakers starting lineup because I'm pretty confident LeBron's going to be higher owned than Davis. But if LeBron is facing the Hawks without Rondo on the floor, you just need a bigger gap between him and Davis for me to consider it. Whereas if he's playing more minutes alongside Rondo, then you don't need the ownership gap to be quite as big because you do see per minute production drop for LeBron.
Right. Agreed. In the front court, we have Tyson Chandler, who is questionable unless he was ruled out. I haven't seen any news on him yet. Did I miss anything on him?
No, just he missed shoot around.
Yeah, so he didn't go through shoot around. JaVale McGee's played 30 and 26 minutes over his last two games, dominated the 76ers front court. And I don't want to act like Chandler is a huge deal here. And you have, Muscala, who played 13 minutes, tweaked his ankle. It was actually really ugly. And then he got up and played and then came off a minute or two later against it was really, it was bad. I didn't think he was going to get up. And then you have Moritz Wagner, Adam, who again looks like a child in a man's body. It's kind of freakish. So that's what we have here. If Chandler doesn't play, take 15 or so minutes out of the rotation and give them elsewhere. What do you see for McGee here against Atlanta?
Yeah, I have McGee in for 28 minutes. Right now, I'm assuming that Muscala and Chandler neither one play since they both missed shoot around. So I have McGee at 28 minutes. I have Wagner picking up about 12, and then I have Kuzma playing the final 8 at center. He was actually on his way to Kuzma, that is, was on his way to closing the game against the Sixers before everyone left, because it was a blowout. But so I have him getting some minutes at the 5. But McGee, I think, he's going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. But I don't really think there's anyone priced around him that offers you similar upside either. Surprisingly, one thing Atlanta actually has not been bad at is rebounding. Despite playing at a really fast pace over the last month, they've allowed the 6th fewest rebounds per game. But you make up for that, one, because McGee is so cheap that it doesn't really matter a whole lot. But 2, Atlanta's allowed the 7th most blocks per game. They have Trae Young, who's not a very big point guard, but who attacks the rim as much as almost any guard in the league, driving into McGee here and just offering up plenty of block upside. So absolutely love JaVale McGee with or without Chandler. But if Chandler and Muscala are out, it just helps to solidify his minutes.
Yep, certainly does. The Atlanta Hawks also on the season are ranked 2nd in drives per game behind only the Utah Jazz. That's very good for JaVale McGee.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, 54 drives per game for Atlanta. I like that. And in terms of field goal attempts, they're not just kicking it out. They're getting a lot of shots up around the rim. That's good. The truth is, Adam, even if I projected JaVale McGee for 24 minutes, I still get him as a really good play.
Yep.
If I project him at 24 minutes, I still have him around 30 fantasy points. So How do I get away from that?
Yep. And I already have his rates about as low as I can get them because I just, assume he plays all of his minutes with LeBron, which isn't necessarily the case, and got his, usage and everything as low as I possibly could and still just get him as a top play.
Right. It's really hard to get away from. Not saying you need to, but on the other side, let's have some fun with this Hawks team. All right, here Jalen Adams. I don't know if you saw it, but he will not play. All right, so that means that we have Anderson, Bazemore, Bembry, Carter, Collins, Dedmon, Herter, Len, Poitras, Prince, Spellman, Young. How many guards did I just mention there? You got Young. Seriously, right? You got Young. You got Herter. Herter ain't backing up the point. You want to use Bembry as the 2 guard? Sure. You have Bazemore. Like, is Bazemore playing backup point?
I think
else
Bembry
do
is.
you have? Okay, Bembry would make the most sense because we've actually seen him handle that a little bit. But even so, like, this is a backcourt right now that with Jeremy Lin gone, they don't even have Jalen Adams. Dorsey gone. They're thin.
Yeah, you know you're getting into the second half of the NBA season when you get a alert that Jalen Adams is ruled out. That actually impacts your day. But yeah, you have. So basically, Bembry was playing like 16 minutes a game. I have him at 24 here. I think he gets backup point minutes. If it's not him, it basically has to be Bazemore. But either way, I think both of those guys end up coming in as good value plays, even if they don't get a ton of minutes, because it is such a fast-paced game. You have, one of them handling the ball. Bazemore, since returning from his injury, has a 26% usage rate as it is. If you look at his numbers this year without Lin or Young on the floor, he has a 32% usage rate over like 87 minutes. Bembry in that situation has almost a 20% usage rate and almost a 28% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.13 DraftKings points per minute without those guys on the floor, and they're both close to minimum price. So I don't think that I want to play them together, but I think that I'll probably have a lot of Bazemore and a lot of Bembry in lineups tonight as value.
Yeah, it's tough not to because they don't it's not that they're thinned out everywhere. It's not like they're only going to have 8 guys, but in the backcourt, you're going to be limited. And check this out. So last game against Orlando, stayed close for a while. And then, of course, the Magic pulled away from it because the Hawks are terrible. By the way, they are 7-17 against the spread at home this season. Worst, 7-17 at home. Dear God. But if you look at the game flow here, Adam, we saw Lloyd Pierce use 6 guys off the bench. He used Bembry, Spellman, Lin, Len, Bazemore, and Anderson. You don't have Lin to use. You're running Spellman or Len at the point or even at the 2, obviously, right? You're not going to run a 7-footer or even Amari Spellman there. And then with Justin Anderson, like, if you're in a pinch, could you throw him out there in a big lineup at the 2? Sure, but I don't see Pierce doing that. I mean, I really only see Prince, Herter, Bembry, and Bazemore getting all of the minutes between the 1 and the 2, unless you see it differently. Unless you see somebody like Prince or Anderson getting run there, there's really no other option.
No, I mean, I threw Anderson basically the leftover minutes that I didn't want to give anyone else because I didn't want them in like all my lineups. I think he plays, but I don't think he plays any sort of significant role here. I think that Young's minutes become a little more solidified. I have him projected for 33 minutes. I think that you can add a few minutes to Bembry, taking those from Lin. You can add, a few minutes to Bazemore. Like Lin was playing around 18 minutes a night right now, backing up Young. So, I basically threw like 6 of those to Bembry, or 8 of those to Bembry, like 6 of them to Bazemore and a couple of them to Young. And I don't really see how else it goes.
No. Jalen Adams probably would have played like 18 minutes if he was healthy. Get somewhere close to Lin's backup minutes, but he's not. So with that in mind, we know that Pierce has been pretty erratic with doling out minutes to his starters. But I don't see how I can project Young for less than like 31 minutes.
Right, exactly. I mean, he's been playing really well also, but this certainly helps to solidify those minutes because, you don't have a backup point guard. You have a Bembry or a Bazemore that you're basically having to force into more minutes.
Exactly. So where are you at on we talked about the value here. Trae Young coming in at $6,700 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is $7,400. I mean, that's a good price point in a 239 total game against the Lakers team right now that I don't want to say they look lost, but they don't exactly look like a juggernaut.
Yeah, I love Trae Young, which I'm sure will not be fun, but there's really no way for me not to. I mean, he's been playing really well lately. He's got like a 28.7% usage rate over the last month. He's averaging well over a fantasy point per minute, up near 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. There's a ton of possessions to go around in this game. And not surprisingly, since over the last month, of course, which coincides heavily with Lonzo Ball being injured, the Lakers are playing at a little bit slower pace, dropping to like 8th. So still a fast pace, just not where they were. But they've gone from being one of the most efficient teams defensively to one of the least efficient teams defensively, ranking 27th in defensive rating over that stretch. So
isn't that strange? I mean, not strange,
no.
but no. Hold on. The word I should have used is amazing.
Oh yeah.
You could go from playing that well defensively when they were playing terrible offensively to drop. Mind you, they were top 3 in defensive rating throughout like the entire month of January almost. So,
yeah, Lonzo Ball, man, he's really, really good.
Yeah, well, he's good at defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
His dad thinks he's better than LeBron. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah.
Did you ever get to watch it?
No, I haven't. I forgot to go back and watch it.
And then they say, he goes, well, LeBron with the free throws, like he can't even hit free throws. And Sharp's like, your son shoots 40% from the free throw line. And he said, yeah, well, he's young. He's young, and I haven't coached him up yet. Oh my God. I know he wants the attention, but like it's so ridiculous, man. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, no, that's amazing. But yeah, so I mean, I love Trae Young here. I expect him to be really popular. Normally, I don't really like rostering guys like Young when they're popular, but it's not like he's completely one-dimensional. I mean, the guy does pick up assists. He's a phenomenal passer. He doesn't have a whole lot of guys to pass to, but he tries. And more than anything, it's just a really cheap price tag and a really appealing spot.
Yep, I'm with you. Anywhere else here? Any interest in anyone? I actually do have some interest, especially as a pivot. Now, if we're looking at ownership, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, you can head over to awesemo.com and check out our ownership projections, everything else, lineup builder, the fantasy cruncher add-on, rankings, projections, the deeper dive that Adam and I switch off writing each and every day. And you can do so by getting 50% off, half off your first month. And all you got to do, you go to the homepage on awesemo.com, you click join now. You select your plan, put in your name, takes 2 seconds, click where it says, do you have a coupon? You say, yes, sir, I do. And your coupon is Deeper Dive. One word, Deeper Dive. Plug it in, check out, 50% off your first month at awesemo.com. Use the promo code Deeper Dive, and we hope to see you over there. Wanted to get that out of the way a little early because it was on subject. But JaVale McGee right now on DraftKings, Adam, second highest projected ownership, okay? Behind only one player, and that's DeMarcus Cousins. Dwayne Dedmon is coming in about 10% below him, and I think he might even be lower than that. What are your thoughts on a guy like Dedmon, who the minutes are capped as are McGee's, but could get up to 28 minutes, is a +1 fantasy point per minute guy, and as much as McGee produces from a fantasy standpoint, defensively the Lakers have very much struggled to contain opposing centers. We don't have the time, but I could give you a litany. I could give you a lot of numbers, a lot of stats that would indicate or prove how bad they've been against centers all year long.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Dedmon. I obviously like McGee more, but you're talking about similar minutes for Dedmon. You're talking about a very favorable matchup, a very cheap price tag. And one thing he does have working for him on DraftKings is that he's a power forward. On FanDuel, he's really cheap at 5,100. So I think both of those things work in Dedmon's favor. I'll also even throw out there again, it's a 5-game slate. And if you're playing
Alex Len, man. Alex Len. Yeah, get it.
I mean, I wouldn't want to do it on FanDuel because of the opportunity cost of the position.
3,500 on DraftKings,
though. 3,500 on DraftKings. If I project him for 17 minutes, which I think in a normal game flow, he gets like 14, but it wouldn't take much it wouldn't take much for him to get to like 17 or 18 minutes. He comes in as a pretty decent play at 3,500. So, obviously don't have him in the same lineup with Dedmon, but this is absolutely a spot where I expect Dedmon to have a bunch of ownership, and then his backup, who will go nuts if he plays, extended minutes, to have like, 3% or something.
Yeah, no question. I just had the weirdest person follow me. Actually, it's a family. It's a family. It's called the Family Lewis. Really strange. They've tweeted once since 2009, and it was a fantasy thing. So I don't know. Weird stuff happens on the Twitterverse. But yeah, we had a question about that earlier today in the strategy show, and I was like, I'm glad someone pointed that out because Alex Len, if he gets the run, could be perfectly fine. And you want to talk about per minute production? He is well over a fantasy point per minute too, and he's facing the Lakers. If Dedmon gets into foul trouble early, or Len just plays better off the bench, and Pierce gives him extended run. If Len plays 22 minutes here, well, he's super cheap. It's risky, and like you said, definitely don't play him in the same lineup as Dedmon. There's no need to do that, but there is merit to considering him. We'll move on here, but last I'll ask you about John Collins, and we can talk this exhilarating Memphis and San Antonio game.
Yeah, I mean, I love John Collins too. I like this entire Atlanta team. Like anyone getting minutes, I think is, especially because they're cheap, I think is, a good play. But Collins, his rebounding numbers have been down a bit lately, which isn't great, but he still for the season has the 7th most offensive rebounds per game, despite averaging less than 30 minutes per game. He's facing a Lakers team that's given up the 3rd most offensive rebounds per game over the last month. I think it's a phenomenal spot for him. The price tag has come down a bit. His minutes, of course, are all over the place, just like everyone else's on this team, but the spot really is just too good for me to ignore.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. And he's really not that expensive. Rapid fire. John Collins on DraftKings, single lineup. You can only play one of them. John Collins or Julius Randle. Collins is 7,600. Randle facing Orlando is 7,400.
John Collins.
Okay. And then you have Aldridge at 7,700.
That one I think is closer for me, but I would still lean Collins.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, that allows us to segue here into this next game. We've got Memphis at home against the Spurs. Spurs 6-point favorites on the road. I mean, this game is just pretty ugly. We can pick and choose. Like, honestly, I know we just spent 25 minutes on the Lakers and Hawks. That is intentional because we're not going to spend as much time on some of these other games simply because it isn't necessary. But here we go. 6-point favorites. You got a 209 total. It's every other game's at 225 or above. Now, that's not to say that low total games should be just wiped off the map entirely. We're not talking Manny specials here, Adam, but they are less appealing. Memphis and San Antonio is always one of those matchups where I'm just like, I'm not interested. But I do think Aldridge is in a good spot. I want to start on the other side, though. We had a long conversation on the strategy show about this. Joakim Noah and Ivan Rabb played like 16 minutes alongside each other last game. Maybe it was 14, but they played a good amount of minutes alongside each other. Noah played 30 minutes off the bench. No surprise to anyone. Jaren Jackson was in early foul trouble, but Jonas Valanciunas is now cleared to make his debut. And Josh and I, we discussed it at length, but really the truth is neither of us had any idea how many minutes he was going to play. And the big thing is it's not just like he was traded. He also hasn't played in 2 calendar months.
Right. I have no idea how many minutes he plays either, but exactly what you said about Rob and Noah playing alongside each other. It makes me think that you probably see Noah and J-Val, plays and probably plays like mid to upper teens. Noah, I would guess, gets somewhere in like the 20-minute range. And then Rob plays the rest of the center minutes and he backs up Jaren Jackson is my guess at how this goes.
Me too. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, Joval could play 12 minutes and I wouldn't be shocked. And it's been 2 months since he has played. And it's a thumb injury, so not a lower body injury, but still, it's still something that I have some concerns about. But really, in an event like this, I'm okay with just saying, yeah, I'll pass. I mean, I'm not playing Joval here. It's also not a great matchup. You're not facing the Hawks. You're not facing the Clippers. You're not facing the Lakers. What are you doing with the front court for Memphis here? Jaren Jackson up to 6,200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you got him power forward at 6,700. We'll talk front court and make our way through.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mess, at least uncertainty now. So I think that Rob is still reasonable. I'll end up with him, around 28 to 30 minutes. The price tag is still nice, but again, it's not a great matchup. The game overall isn't really that appealing. The same really can be said for Jaren Jackson. I do like that Bertans will be starting at the 4 most likely instead of LaMarcus Aldridge with Rudy Gay back, so that's good. As far as maybe being able to avoid foul trouble a little bit, I think that if he can stay out of foul trouble, you probably get somewhere around 30 minutes from him. It's a completely marginal play for me. So I don't have a ton of interest in this front court, but if I get to some Robert Jackson, it's okay, but certainly not priorities.
Yeah, me neither. If Joval was out, I would actually have interest in Noah.
So would I.
Because seeing him play along that much, not just play alongside Rob, but play alongside him that much, showing that Bickerstaff has no issues with it, or at least is willing to do it, would have made him a very appealing play. But that's not the case here. Do you have any interest elsewhere in this Grizzlies squad against San Antonio?
Well, waiting on huge news here with Mike Conley being sick. I haven't seen if he made it through shoot around or not, but we got the downgrade midday for him being questionable. I assume, I'm operating under the assumption he doesn't play just because it's Mike Conley.
Did he go from probable to questionable or nothing to questionable?
I think he was nothing.
Right, that's what I thought too. I didn't even know about it till midday.
Right. Yeah, I think that's when it came out.
Okay. Right. I just wasn't sure if he was probable this morning and I missed it.
Lakers lineup, same as last game.
Okay. Well, we've got it. That's good to know. That's good.
Yeah. So Conley, if he's in, is okay. Again, I'm not prioritizing anything from this game. Definitely not this side of the game. If he's out, then you get today's Chase on Randall play with DeLon Wright filling in for Conley and playing a bunch of probably not very productive minutes.
Yeah.
But he's 3,500 on DraftKings and would be a perfectly fine punt play.
That is awesome. Shout out to the family Lewis. They said, haha, hey, don't hate on my Twitter account. Went dormant until recently when I picked up NBA DFS. Welcome, family. We're happy to have you here. I
was really hoping you were watching the show.
I had no idea. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Well, we welcome you. What I thought it was you have the Partridge Family, and they if they were around now, they would document their life and their travels on Twitter, right? That's what I thought it was. I'm like, what do they follow, man? What they don't? I don't help. What are they following me for? I doubt I'm doing anything to entertain them. And then I saw the fantasy tweet after I had mentioned it. But welcome the family, Lewis. Tweet more. It's fun. On the other side, though, and you're right with Conley. This is big. It's really big, and I don't really care who they're facing. But then, the funny thing here too, Adam, is if Mike Conley is out, you've got a new look backcourt. Javon Carter has been there, but Shelvin Mack, who would generally see most of those minutes, is gone. You have Tyler Dorsey, you have Avery Bradley, you have DeLon Wright. If you mentioned it and I was reading that tweet, please forgive me. But if Conley's out, what do you see being the case here?
Yeah, all I mentioned was that if you had fun with Chase on Randall yesterday, that you can go right back to DeLon Wright today.
Fair enough.
But no, all the opportunity will be there for Wright. We've seen him be productive at times with Toronto in the past when he gets chances. I assume he would be the first in line to get opportunities, but again, it's a tough matchup, or a reasonably tough matchup against San Antonio. They have dropped off again recently defensively. The price tag, especially on DraftKings at 3,500, would put him in a spot where I probably just suck it up and play a bunch of DeLon Wright, but it wouldn't be with a whole lot of confidence.
Yeah, how could it be? Really, how could it be? But he's there if you need him in the event that Conley is out. Seeing now, so hold on one second here. Give me a minute. Somebody just mentioned that Conley was upgraded to probable, but I haven't seen that.
Neither have
I haven't seen that. Probably just yanking my chain over here. Let's move on to the Spurs.
Is Tyler Dorsey available? I haven't seen that either.
He was recalled. Yeah.
Okay.
If he was recalled, I'm going to assume that he's available.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just hadn't seen that.
Right. So he should be there. They really, their whole backcourt looks totally different.
Yeah. It's just they have so many bodies still.
Right. They got Washburn too.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you. And CJ Miles, if he was going to get run into two, it's impossible to tell. Like Adam, I'm staying away from it, man. I know when a point guard like that goes out, it's really, really tempting. But how do you, with any semblance of confidence at all, pick the guy? Like, okay, if we get a starter, and Dylan Wright starts, okay, maybe I'll give him a look, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Carter either. And then you just see the minutes could be all over the place, and all of them could end up playing like 18 minutes. I don't know. And none of them are really high per minute guys anyway. What are you doing with the Spurs?
So, I mean, there's a couple of pretty appealing price plays. One being LaMarcus Aldridge, who you mentioned before. He's been the best fantasy player on the Spurs over the last month plus. Averaging
Rosen's
about
been trash lately, though.
Yeah, he has. Aldridge averaging about 1.25 fantasy points per minute since the start of January in what is not really a difficult spot anymore, going up against, Ivan Robb and Joakim Noah's corpse and Jonas Valanciunas here in this front court and Jaren Jackson. So I do think Aldridge is really close for me with Collins. And while I said that I prefer Collins, if we are going to get a significant ownership gap between them, which I don't have our projected ownership in front of me right now, but I assume that there is one because that game's just so appealing. Aldridge is a better per minute fantasy producer than John Collins is. And this, I don't think, will be as difficult a matchup going forward as it has been for most of the season. So you're going to get tons of opportunities for Aldridge here at, sub 8K price tag on DraftKings, and DeRozan also on DraftKings and even on FanDuel. The price tag on FanDuel isn't quite as appealing, but the position's just really bad. On DraftKings, 7,300 is the lowest price point we've had on DeMar DeRozan since October 20th. The opportunities are still there. He's just not playing well. He's averaged 0.96 fantasy points per minute over the last month, 28.9% usage, still leads the team in potential assists at 8.4 per game. The chances are still there. He's still playing 34 to 36 minutes in competitive games. I don't think he's, a must play or anything, but I think the price tag has come down enough to where he's a perfectly reasonable option.
Yeah, me too. And I think you pointed out, but Bertans is going to play like 30 minutes with White out and, do as you please, but that's about it. By the way, appreciate that, Seth. Seth linked RotoWire, which does in the RotoWire, like it does say that he's trending in the right direction and is upgraded to probable, but that's the only place I've seen it. RotoWire generally trustworthy enough, but that's the only place I've seen it. So appreciate that. Let's move on. We got 3 to go here. Not a whole lot of time, but we'll get through this. No problem. Pelicans and Orlando. New Orleans Pelicans are favored by 4.5 points at home, 225 total. Anthony Davis is going to play. Here's another situation where it's like, well, I think he plays this many minutes, but do we really know?
We don't, but I mean, I have him at 36 minutes here. If you look at
36 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, in their last game against Memphis, Davis played 34 minutes on the nose. He left with 1 minute and 49 seconds to go because they subbed in, Darius Miller and Chuck Diallo and the bench unit to finish out the game down by like 15 or 12 points or something. So, if I give him those couple of minutes, it gets him up to 36. And so I'm going to just go with that.
All right. You like him? 10-2, 10-3 on DraftKings. Orlando playing better defense, but that's a pretty discounted cost if you think he's getting 36 minutes.
Yeah, I like him. A lot will come down to ownership. Again, with Rondo coming off the bench, LeBron's more productive. He becomes a 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy, and that puts him into a similar price or a similar production range as Anthony Davis. They're both similarly priced on DraftKings. Davis is like 12.5 on FanDuel, which is a little crazy. But on DraftKings, it'll really come down to the ownership. Like I clearly prefer LeBron to Anthony Davis. But if you're going to tell me that LeBron is, 2.5 times as popular as Davis or something like that, I think Davis wins enough to be worth it.
No question. LeBron right now with projected ownership over on Awesemo at 25%, Davis at 14%. We'll see. We'll see. I think Randall's a fine play too. We talked about it a little while ago. I prefer Collins over Randall as well. He's a secondary play for me. But Kenrich Williams, Adam, say what you want about the guy, but he's $4,900 on DraftKings. In 2 games since Davis is back, he's played 37 minutes. even if I projected Kenrich Williams for 33 minutes at 4,900, he would still be popping up as a pretty decent play tonight. What are you doing with old KW?
I really wish this guy would go away.
I know, but it's tough. Like he's getting so much run with Davis and Randall in the lineup.
Right. And he's producing, like he's a hustle guy. He's getting the rebounds.
Yep.
It's one of those, like, I don't believe that he is this good on a per minute basis for fantasy purposes, but he has been. Emac messaged me the other day when he was going nuts and was like, I think we have to consider that Kenrich Williams might be like, remember when Thomas Robinson used to get run and be really productive? And I was like,
amazing, actually.
Yeah, but Thomas Robinson was the 4th overall pick, and he had all kinds of talent. This guy is just like an undrafted dude who's going out there and averaging a fantasy point per minute somehow.
I agree, but when you're playing in the front court and you are a pure hustle high motor guy, it's easier than being like, oh, why does this shitty wing player, why is he producing 0.9 fantasy points per minute? Like, at least we know where it's coming from. It's because the guy never stops moving. And
right.
So at least he's generating these fantasy points and not falling face first into him. Like, I do think the rebounding and the energy that he plays with is contributing to that. Look, I'm not going to sit here and advocate that Kenrich Williams is a great basketball player. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is across 35 or more minutes, based on how he is rebounding and how he's playing, and opportunities even around the rim, it's not as insane, I think, as it looks at first glance. That's all.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And the price tag is still low enough. I mean, if I project him for 34 minutes and I put in the rates that he's had so far, I get him at 29 fantasy points, which is perfectly fine. Any lineup I look at that has Kenrich Williams in it is not going to make me happy, but numbers are numbers.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Elfrid Payton is ruled out. All right, that was to be expected, but just letting you know. So yeah, I don't really know what else to tell you here. It's kind of, it is what it is. At that price point, the risk is definitely lower. Now Jahlil Okafor will play. Do you want to go ahead, because we don't have a ton of time, and just in case people are wondering, do you want to explain where Williams' minutes are coming from? I've had that question a couple of times. Like, how does he keep getting these minutes with Davis and Randall healthy?
He's taking them from Darius Miller for one. So Okafor playing concerns me a little bit with Williams because Okafor was playing so well. I'm not convinced that. So like Okafor clearly takes Check Diallo's minutes here, but last game Diallo played 12.7 minutes. I'm not convinced that Okafor is only playing 12 minutes.
I agree.
So I think that is scary for Williams. Like I think, especially because even if you knocked Williams down from like 34 to 26 minutes or something, you still don't really want Williams anymore. And that would be giving Okafor basically like 20 center minutes and then, giving Davis more minutes at the 4. So
Mike Conley's out. Thanks, cool. RotoWire. Delon Wright Delon Wright. That's why you got to be careful with the sources. Not to say it was Seth's fault for giving us that info, but Delon Wright will start. Jahlil Okafor will start. Dude, we need more time than this.
Okay, so Kenrich Williams. Well, Darius Miller probably goes to the bench, I guess.
You think Kenrich starts at the 3?
I don't see why not, especially because
but
minutes from Miller.
If that's the case, just because Kenrich Williams is starting, like I said, being around the basket has really helped him out. That right there, Adam, concerns me quite a bit. More than a third of his field goal attempts come from within 5 feet of the basket. Now, if he starts at the 3, that is a downgrade for me. I don't know where you stand on that, but it's a pretty significant downgrade for me.
Yeah, it is for me too, because I still have trouble giving him as many minutes as he was playing. I don't think Darius Miller DNPs. I don't think Etuan Moore DNPs. So, yeah, it makes me a lot less interested in Williams.
All right. Well, at least we're getting this news now. But yeah, that's a big deal to me. Now we don't know if Kenrich Williams is starting it. Tyson Chandler's also out as well. I got the new boys and girls. I got it right. We got this feed moving. Don't worry. I got you. I won't let you down. I promise. But it's just we're delayed from you. Yeah. So Delon Wright starting in place of Conley. Jahlil Okafor will start. Tyson Chandler is out. All of that news comes in like a tsunami. So there you have it. We'll wait on the New Orleans starting lineup. Anything else do you have in terms of the Pelicans outside of who we've discussed?
Jahlil Okafor at 5,500 becomes kind of appealing if we can give him. I obviously haven't mapped it out with him starting, but if we can give him like 28 minutes or something.
Yeah. Joe Val starting, expected to play 38 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Joe Val will come off the bench in his. Could you imagine? Joe Val will come off the bench in his Grizzlies debut. Yeah, I don't hate the idea of Okafor. And I tell you what, if Williams stays in the lineups, I think most people will continue to play him, just assuming that he's going to get the same minutes. I worry now about his minutes a little bit more, but also playing further away from the basket. Okafor could get things interesting there. There's no way that Anthony Davis starts at the 5 and Okafor at the. I mean, anything can happen. It's Alvin Gentry, but Okafor's got to start at the 5 here. So
yeah, Okafor starting for Elfrid Payton.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know what to think. What are you doing with Orlando? You like Vooch here?
Yeah, I like Vooch. I like him even more now that we have Okafor starting.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mentioned
although rebounding is a little bit, I will say it hurts rebounding a little bit if you have Okafor and Davis in the front court, but defensive rebounding shouldn't really take much of a hit.
Yeah. I think Vooch is more appealing on FanDuel. But I like him on both sites. The reason I say FanDuel is just that you have a bigger gap between him and Joel Embiid, whereas it's only $700 on DraftKings. But again, a really appealing matchup here. Pace up spot for Vooch. He does everything, rebounding, assists, scoring. You have a not very good defender now in Okafor starting at the 5. So, I really, really like Vooch quite a bit here.
So do I, a lot. And I expect him to play 34 minutes if this game is close, maybe 35, which makes him that much more appealing to me. Aaron Gordon's cheap. You're getting him at 6,400. That's fine. Anybody else for Orlando stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gordon's price tag's too low. I think Fournier on DraftKings is fine, but again, it's not really a super high upside guy normally. It's just someone that kind of plugs the last hole in your lineup.
All right. Hey, by the way, in case you guys were wondering, which I know you are, it is Awesemo birthday. Not Alex Baker, not the face of Awesemo, the man behind the mask, but Awesemo.com on February 15th. We're celebrating our first anniversary here at Awesemo.com. That's exciting stuff, Adam. So to thank each and every person out there for their support. In our first year, we're giving away one all-access annual membership, a value of $700 to one loyal viewer of our YouTube channel. And all you got to do is like the video and leave us a comment. I got a good one. This is going to be easy. Leave us a comment. Before, but it's got to be down below after the show ends. Can't be over there. Can't be I don't know if I'm even pointing in the right direction. There, whatever. Can't be in the YouTube chat. Has to be in the comments. Leave us a comment after the show and before lock. Who is going to be the player that burns us the worst tonight? It feels like one of those nights where we got to be careful and avoid those grenades. We'll be sure to shout you out when you're right, or if you're wildly wrong, that'll be fun too. Because hey, no one hates doing it when we are. All you got to do is like the video. Who is going to burn us most tonight? Who are you staying away from on this 5-game slate? So basically, that's all you have to do to have a chance to win. And you can enter on every video, every show throughout the day and get entered every single time. So to improve your chances, you can do that. And you can also enter the separate contest for another annual all access pass on our Twitter handle. All you got to do, follow Awesemo_com and check the pinned tweet for more information. We'll be announcing the winners on the last live before lock. The NBA All-Star break on Wednesday, February 13th. So like the video, tell us, who are you keeping out of your lineups tonight? And check out our Twitter as well. We want to thank you, of course, for being awesome, loyal viewers and helping us get to where we are. All right, Adam, Philly and Boston. Philadelphia 76ers, 6.5-point home favorites, 226 total. Marcus Morris shaking up the team a little bit with his comments. Al Horford passively, like he does, agreeing. And Kyrie Irving sitting out. Well, the Philadelphia 76ers, I want to get through this one quickly because there's no need to just talk about how difficult it is to evaluate them right now. Pelicans will start Holiday, Moore, Williams, Davis, and Okafor. So Williams at the 3. Okafor
and Moore in the starting lineup.
And Moore in the starting lineup, yeah. That's okay. So Frank Jackson out. Anyway, Philly with Tobias Harris. This is a whole lot different than it was before.
Yeah, completely different. The big thing that I noticed, and obviously we're talking about 2 games worth of data, but the big thing that I noticed was that Ben Simmons is really being hurt here, which kind of surprised me. But I have it written down somewhere. His total touches over those 2 games, he's averaging about 16 fewer touches per game. He's averaging a little over 6 fewer rebound chances per game. He's averaging 2.3 fewer assists per game. His usage has actually gone up a little bit, but for someone who his value doesn't really come from his scoring, the fact that you're seeing less in the way of assist opportunities and much less in the way of rebounding, which makes a lot of sense since he's not playing any time at power forward anymore, is certainly concerning. So I'm really not that interested in him on FanDuel as a reasonably expensive point guard. On DraftKings at 7,800 with guard forward eligibility, I think he's okay, but there's still just a lot of guys that I like more. I mean, you have Kyle Kuzma for $1,800 less. You have all the guards we've talked about. So I think that's really concerning for Simmons. Butler predictably has seen all of his stuff go down a little bit, including his usage. Harris has actually been the second most rebound opportunities with 12.5 per game. We're seeing a reasonable amount of assist opportunities as well with 6, which is the same as Butler. So he actually, at a pretty cheap price tag, I like him a little bit more than Butler. And then Embiid's still just my favorite guy from this team because he's still going to get his regardless of what Tobias Harris is doing. I think Harris being there actually helps Embiid from an efficiency standpoint because you can't double him as much with another shooter on the floor. So even though it's a difficult matchup, the 10-2 price tag on DraftKings I think is really, really good for Embiid.
So do I. No question. And I'm not too worried about this front court defense for the Boston Celtics. I will say, though, I'm very much take it or leave it with Ben Simmons tonight. I'm not as worried, though. In terms of his opportunities, I think that it'll balance out. His first couple games with Butler, he was just all over the place and just very passive. I think this is him getting used to a new situation and integrating Harris into the offense. My guess is that Simmons will be fine. When, I don't know, but I don't think I was wrong when I said that about Butler. Simmons has continued to play perfectly fine basketball. 7,800, I don't have an issue, but it is also a good Boston defense. I probably won't have all that much Simmons, even though I think that might be a little bit noisy after 2 games.
Yeah, the only spot that I'm really concerned about long term is the rebounding.
Right, and that's fair. Yeah, the assists I'm not too concerned about. Harris playing like off the ball almost the whole game, even though he had some opportunities, he still mostly played off the ball. With Boston, go ahead and just give me your breakdown of who you like most and who you don't here, because we still got one more game to get through.
Yeah, I mean, I like Rozier. I assume he plays around 34 minutes in a competitive game. I have him behind Trae Young, but he's been really productive when he started for Kyrie. He's averaging about 0.95 fantasy points per minute with Horford on and Irving off this year. But in his starts, and this is not accounting for Horford, but in his starts, he's averaged 1.14 fantasy points per minute. It is a pace-up spot. It has been a very efficient Philadelphia defense. So I think Rozier is a perfectly fine play. I like Al Horford a lot, especially on DraftKings where you can roster him at power forward without the opportunity cost of the center position. We've seen him play more minutes in competitive games. This is one where I'm projecting him for 32, but even seeing like 34 wouldn't really be that surprising. You get an assist boost without Irving out there, so I like him. I think Marcus Morris is a good play on either site, and then you can certainly roll the dice with guys like Smart, Hayward, or Brown. But I would rank it Horford, Morris, Rozier at the top.
Horford, Morris, Rozier. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And then of course you've got your Haywards and such, and your Jason Tatums. I always have trouble getting the Tatum when he's priced around guys so similar to other guys that I think have higher upside. Anything else on Boston?
Nope.
It's pretty much the same thing when Irving's out all of the time. We don't really need to recap it.
Yep.
Let's close it out. Warriors 8.5 point favorites at home against Utah, 228 total. Floor's yours, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, so we're waiting on Draymond Green news here. He's questionable. If he sits, I think it's a boost for Kevon Looney, which would give you another value play in a pretty unappealing spot. DeMarcus Cousins is, playing 26 to 28 minutes a game now. His price tag's reasonable. We have him projected for really high ownership. I still don't really feel the need to roster him or to be like overweight on him as a really popular play, but he is grading out as the best play from Golden State for me because of his price tag and because we're getting a few more minutes for him. Steph Curry and Durant, I don't really want to roster them together. I do think that they're both underpriced in terms of upside. If I have to choose one of them, I would lean toward Curry.
Anything for Utah for you?
Whatever I get out of like Rubio and Gobert, I'm fine with, but there's nothing that's, a priority for me there. I think both of those positions are just so deep that they're just secondary plays.
Yeah, for sure. And just to echo, with Clay Thompson, I'm perfectly fine on that price point. Cousins, I love Cousins all the time. Right now, we have him with the highest projected ownership, though, which certainly makes things a little bit difficult. Being that I know he's not going to play, as many minutes as I would like. And I do still think no matter how good he is, the ceiling is capped when you're playing 26, 27 minutes. It is still something that when he's high owned, and you've said this a lot, it's not as hard to get away from him. And that's really all there is to it. But anyway, that'll do it for us. Stick around. Coming up next, live before lock. Those boys are going to take you up till 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks as always for tuning into the Deeper Dive. Remember, like the video and leave us a comment. Who are you staying away from tonight? Who is that grenade that we need to dodge? Good luck. We'll see you back here tomorrow. We got 2 more days to go until the All-Star break. We'll catch you back here next time on the Deeper Dive.